From the day he was born, this is the tale of a boy who was disliked by his parents. Regretfully, Daven was born at the same time and date as Cajun, a young person who is lucky enough to be blessed by the sword god Kashak. Cajun is gifted with a beautiful body and incredible ability. All Daven's mom could hope was that Cajun was her son and not him. One of the things that disappointed her and his father was Daven's absence of a right arm. His mother used to whisper to him every night that he ought to die. Knowing what had happened, Daven apologized to her without trying to figure out why she hated him. He feared death. Before Daven was even born, he listened to his father proclaiming that he was the embodiment of hope. During that period, they anticipated Daven's arrival since his father had never managed to surpass his older brother. However, the speaker held hope that when Daven was born, he would exceed his brother's son in some way. Despite being born with only one hand and without the favor of a deity, Daven's father still held the expectation that he would triumph over Cajun. However, the mere fact of Daven's birth shattered all his father's aspirations. Despite Cajun playing cheerfully and starting to walk, Daven continued to face difficulty while attempting to stand. By the time Daven learned to walk, Cajun had already grasped a weapon in his hand. Cajun had already experienced mana and started training in Samion's swordsmanship by the time Daven first held a blade. Daven eventually started to admire and feel jealous of Cajun. At the age of 7, he was chosen to assist Cajun. Externally, it was widely understood that he was dispatched as a helper to assist Cajun, but in actuality, his parents exchanged him for a sum of 300,000 liden. As they matured, Cajun exploited him due to the fact that right from the start, Daven was a source of irritation to him. For this reason, Cajun directed his anger towards Daven, leaving Daven with no other option but to suppress his tears. He found it difficult to accept that the adults who came before him ignored the situation. Daven's uncle was renowned for being a remarkable individual. However, he departed from the family a considerable time ago and never returned. Due to the lack of supervision, Cajun was able to develop into a leader on his own. Because of his exceptional skill and the favor bestowed upon him by the sword god, he effortlessly triumphed over everyone. Afterwards, he would confront Daven, who resented Cajun's power and skill. Cajun strongly disliked the expression on Daven's face and gave his all in fighting against him, as he couldn't tolerate being perceived in that manner by someone lacking skill. Cajun informs Daven that no matter how much effort he puts in throughout his entire life, he will never be capable of attaining his level of strength. Daven has a strong desire to emerge victorious, he truly does, but his aspirations cannot solely be attained through sheer effort. As Cajun matured, he became increasingly negligent in his commitment to training, indulging in alcohol, lavish meals, and drugs. Nevertheless, Daven remained incapable of defeating him. Cajun, being a brilliant person, chose not to put in any effort, while Daven, despite being foolish, diligently worked towards his goals. However, both of them agree on one thing: their current situations are not permanent. After many battles, the main one came for Daven. Subsequent to trading a couple of blows, interestingly, he got the high ground against Cajun. Subsequent to blinding him, he immediately moved toward him to convey a hard impact with which he at long last figured out how to overcome Cajun. Up to that point, the straight-on record was 21 battles and 21 misfortunes to Cajun, yet following 29 years, Daven had the option to win. Regardless of the multitude of times he lost and individuals advising him to quit any pretense of deriding him for being an inept blockhead, he won, and everybody yelled his name. Cajun couldn't tolerate losing to Daven. At that point, Daven heard the words that fell on his ears when he was more youthful, the expressions of disdain that his folks shared with him. Daven lets Cajun know that if it were in his shoes, he could never have experienced that way. He could not have possibly squandered his life on liquor and medications. He clarifies that he would have carried on with a more significant life than stepping on the frail. When Daven goes to leave, thoroughly considering it's everything, Cajun runs his blade through his chest, leaving everybody dazed. Cajun, adult as far as possible, regardless of overcoming Cajun, it was absolutely impossible that Daven would live. The sun-edged greatsword that main the immediate line of the Samion family utilizes additionally contains Samion family mana with hostile to enchantment properties, implying that except if the marvelous holy person Layla showed up, it was absolutely impossible that Daven would get by. Prior to shutting his eyes, Daven lets Cajun know that he will constantly be recognized as a washout. Shockingly, Daven later awakens restricted, accepting he is in damnation. In any case, this covered person lets him know that he is a fortunate person as the wonderful holy person Layla was available in the field and mended Daven, despite the fact that his entire body was broken and there was nothing left but to relax. Then, this person inquires as to whether he marked an agreement with Satan. Daven is shocked to hear such a proclamation. However, the person specifies that his folks let it be known, so denying it is futile. Other than that, bottles with Daven's blood for the agreement with Satan were tracked down in his family's home. They blame him for being an evil presence who forfeited 300 honest youngsters to make himself more grounded. Daven figured out how to overcome Cajun yet not the Samion family. All things considered, his own family picked Cajun over him on account of this large number of allegations. Daven is condemned to life detainment, and his mana is fixed. Daven's ligaments were cut, and his mana was fixed through many chains, thus he was brought to jail. There, he gets a visit from Cajun who chuckles at him. Cajun figured out how to turn into a blade ruler, and individuals acclaim him for being a focused virtuoso. This simpleton says thanks to Daven for everything, as it was thanks to him that he accomplished all that. After Cajun embarrassed him and left the food they brought, Daven diminished the law to the place where they quit taking care of him. Daven was starving. He figures it would have been exceptional to bite the dust in the field than to pass on along these lines. Daven implodes and contemplates whether, assuming that he had the two arms, his life would have been unique. If by some stroke of good luck he had been of direct genealogy, if by some stroke of good luck he had the gift of the blade god, could his life have been unique? Daven won't bite the dust, and despite the fact that it appears to be that it will occur, he doesn't completely accept that he is dead. All things considered, Daven opens his eyes again in disarray. He is called by the name Vincent, and a sort of natural individual is holding his right arm. It is a grown-up from one of the family branches. He thinks about how he knows him, yet more critically, for what reason did he simply call him Minchin? Is it a fantasy? Vincent is the seventh child of a Dinka. He assumes he is in a fantasy, and it doesn't appear to be so terrible. The air feels new, dissimilar to the jail he was in addition to he has his right arm. The individual before him continues to hold his arm. Yulion attempts to incur torment utilizing mana. There he responds. The strategy to impede that sort of assault is to isolate from the rival actually. Daven pushes the person back, in spite of the fact that he is shocked as it's anything but a sufficient assault to push somebody back that far. Then, at that point, apologizes and lets him know that his hand slipped. The person gets up indignantly and lets Daven know that his child will crush him pitilessly, and that it will be whenever the obedient family first will pulverize the primary family. The person leaves while compromising him and advises him to sit tight for the day of the gathering of the genuine sorts. Be that as it may, isn't this a fantasy? Provided that this is true, he ought to have awakened at this point. Then a few recollections begin streaming back to him. His mom died in the wake of conceiving an offspring, while his dad couldn't have cared less about him. The wide range of various kids dealt with him like soil. Be that as it may, the eighth offspring of the well-known Adinka sword family, he is Vincent, the seventh. He was such a weakling that he fell down and cried in his room subsequent to being slapped by Loa, the most youthful of the family. Now is the ideal time to acknowledge it. The Daven we knew from the Samion family has turned into a feudal notice from the Adinka family. Definitely he's resurrected. Now Vincent fails to see how this occurred. Then, he goes over a journal that Vincent used to disdain himself. His confidence fell so low that he abandoned everything. All that showed that God had heard the requests Daven needed to live in his last minutes. He then considers what has been going on with the first Vincent. Minutes after the fact, he hears a voice. This cautions him. He thinks it is a devil attempting to deceive him since his rebirth ought to never have occurred. In any case, no, the one addressing him was the first proprietor of the body he is in. Since the first Vincent gave him his body, he no longer has a name, so presently he chooses to call himself Yulion. Vincent is confronting a disclosure, something the divine beings provide for people. He had heard that individuals favored from birth can hear the disclosure, and that implies that Yulion is a divine being, a lesser one. Yulion notices that initially he had expected to call an otherworldly god, however the now Vincent slithered all things being equal. If Yulion has any desire to turn into a genuine god and not a lesser one, he should accomplish various achievements. This goes by the name of calling. On the off chance that Yulion finishes his calling, he will actually want to turn into a genuine god. Vincent lets him know that he figures out the conditions, however clarifies that he isn't keen on his accomplishments since, supposing that everything is as Yulion has said, that implies that Vincent has procured himself another everyday routine which he will be caught up with experiencing, so he have the opportunity to pay attention to the desires of a phantom. Yulion surrendered his life, and Daven wanted for one. Notwithstanding, he specifies that the profound energy he has is extremely low, and assuming that energy vanishes totally, Vincent's body will pass on. Vincent thinks it is completely false as he sees that the body is excessively smart for an early passing, however not long after he falls to the ground. From that second on, Yulion will show him the genuine recollections, the ones where Vincent was dealt with like soil. In any case, he sees something in the articulation he had, which is the reason he reaches the resolution that while Vincent was playing the weakling, he was planning to get payback, considerations not by any stretch appropriate for a 13-year-old kid. Vincent awakens, and Yulion inquires as to whether he will pay attention to him now. Then, Yulion inquires as to whether he knows the archdemon Daven and the legend ruler Cajon, which shocks Vincent significantly. This is something that happened quite a while back. A one-outfitted fighter, Daven, got away from Samion jail and, utilizing an agreement with an evil spirit, gobbled up a great many lives to become more grounded. He's said to have killed more than 10,000 individuals, so he is kept in history as an extraordinary devil. In any case, quite a while back, does that mean he voyaged 500 years into what's to come? Things don't appear to check out, yet alongside having the names Daven and Cajon, they are both from the bloodline of the Samion family. Notwithstanding, Vincent is certain that in his previous existence, he passed on in that jail. The Samion family deserted the one-furnished man and picked the Tempest sword, while the one-outfitted fighter passed on alone. The Tempest sword turned into the Blade Ruler, or so it is accepted. However, to create the story and allude to them as the incomparable evil presence ruler and the legend, that is something that drives Vincent exceptionally mad. Yulion jokes and lets him know that Cajon was a companion who truly cherished Daven, which makes Vincent angrier, as he probably is aware this is a made-up story. Yulion inquires as to whether in the previous existence he was somebody from that time. He then explains that the story is only a mix of stories that the victors abandoned. Yulion keeps talking. He specifies that the ruler gulped his tears and worked with the best legend of the time, his closest companion, the sovereign of the sun's sword, to overcome the incomparable evil spirit Daven. The ruler of the sun is Arson, precursor of the Adinka family. Vincent is shocked that this imp has turned into the main patriarch of the Adinka family, and is that Arson was a kid who respected Daven a great deal. This is on the grounds that when Arson was youthful, he was a supporter of Daven. Arson even visited him a couple of times while he was in jail. He was irritated about how had been treated by Daven and let him know that he would ensure he got his distinction back. However, that's what after he said, he didn't visit him once more. Yulion notices that Arsene Fokker is the main patriarch of the Adinka family and leaves them the mission of their lives. It is something worth talking about to do with Julion's accomplishment, beating the Samion family and confronting reality. Vincent thinks Arsene certainly let him know that he would figure out reality. He was somebody who knew how they had violated Daven. Vincent doesn't know, however, Arsene Fokker left the Fokker family and made the Adinka family to confront reality. Bedenka is another family that was made to re-establish Daven's honor. Vincent guesses that it is fate to be naturally introduced to Arsene's loved ones. Vincent inquires as to whether by satisfying his calling he will end up being a genuine god, and the response is yes. Also, assuming that occurs, Daven will actually want to turn into the genuine proprietor of Vincent's body. Furthermore, on the off chance that Yulion turns into a divine being, he will actually want to present a gift to Vincent. An arrangement benefits them both. Vincent expresses gratitude toward Arsene, takes a sword, and says he will acquire the mission he abandoned. He will outperform the Samion family, the family that deceived him. Yulion jokes with Vincent and calls him old since, supposing that he is somebody from a long time back, then he is an elderly person, right? In the wake of strolling for some time, they show up at a preparation match. Vincent considers what sort of combative techniques individuals of that time will utilize. He is intrigued to know how much hand-to-hand fighting has worked on north of 500 years. He additionally thinks about major areas of strength for how relatives of Kajin have become. Nonetheless, his body feels weighty to the place where he swoons. The body he has now isn't excellent. It is in such a terrible state that in the event that he doesn't utilize mana to control it, he cannot carry on with a typical life. In the wake of thinking for some time, he detects a progression of mana and shouts to Yulion, then, at that point, whines to him why he didn't figure out how to employ the sword when he used to have that body. Yulion answers that he had an inability that didn't permit him to learn it. In any case, Vincent lets him know that he has the grand exoskeleton, so he ought to have figured out how to utilize the blade. Yulion has barely any familiarity with exoskeleton. Vincent specifies that with the magnificent exoskeleton, he can store mana in any piece of his body, all the more precisely in his bones. Yulion actually doesn't have any idea, and Vincent attempts to clear up it for him in a more justifiable manner. A military craftsman needs to utilize mana to have strength past an ordinary human. The mana that causes supernatural occurrences is put away in the core of a human. Yet having the eminent exoskeleton implies that mana can be put away during the bones over the heart. That implies that the person who has it will actually want to vastly utilize mana. Yulion actually doesn't comprehend the significance of what Vincent is referring to, and that will be that Kajin, whom everybody calls the legend ruler, additionally had the brilliant exoskeleton. It's unexpected, right? Daven was resurrected in a body with the physiognomy of Kahon, whom he begrudged for his entire life. In a flashback, Yulion lets him know that he can't connect the symbolism to the heart. Vincent doesn't have the foggiest idea what he implies by symbolism. This is symbolism stockpiling for mana. Seeing that he didn't store mana in his heart, Vincent ponders the technique for contemplation, albeit Yulion doesn't know precisely the exact thing sort of reflection strategy he is discussing. Vincent specifies that Fokker, the primary Atanka, had an extraordinary reflection technique to store mana in the heart. In Yulion's time, they store the mana in the symbolism and call everyone a star. The quantity of stars utilized addresses the strength of the military craftsman. Sometime in the past, they wiped out the technique for putting away mana in the actual body. There are not even records of them. These days, they use SD cards to store mana. All in all, this implies that a grown-up of the family makes something like one symbolism. Connecting a symbolism interestingly, and feeling the mana are the prerequisites of a star. Symbolism was made to stay away from the dangers of putting away mana in the heart. Before, the greater part of the military specialists kicked the bucket, putting away mana in their souls since they detonated. Yulion requests that he relax and utilize his body appropriately as though it were valuable, which for sure it is. Which is the reason Vincent asks Yulion for what valid reason he did that to his own body. That body was brought into the world with a magnificent exoskeleton and with a solid heart and wizardry power circuit. Yulion would surely have succeeded, assuming that he had grown up with legitimate preparation in the Samion family. The wonderful exoskeleton is a bone design that permits him to store mana, yet it likewise needs mana to be put away, and his sublime exoskeleton has been starving for mana for north of 13 years. At that rate, Vincent Inca's body will bite the dust without having arrived at adulthood. Afterward, Vincent ponders. He realizes it will keep the body's condition from deteriorating. However, there is a cutoff. He may just have around 10 years left, and that is a sizable amount of time for Tempest Blade to become ruler of the sword and for Daven with one arm to fail. To be remembered by the world. It is the time Daven spent starving while detained as he yearned forever. Those 10 years were almost certainly alarming and irrationally lengthy. Then somebody thumps on the entryway, and afterward enters. It is Vincent's worker. He goes by Wilson, the very one that Yulion said he would cut his throat 3 years after the fact. Try not to think excessively hard. That kid had a few extremely turned contemplations. Vincent requests that Wilson present to him some perfect garments. Wilson is shocked as he sees that Vincent is by all accounts more grounded than expected. He then asks him how he has been making the room such a wreck. Wilson thinks Vincent has been learning dull enchantment or something, so he needs to alarm the great chamberlain and illuminate the patriarch. Vincent gradually approaches and threatensly advises Wilson to take care of his business, as that is what he should do. He should be the worker. Be that as it may, he would rather not do things he doesn't want to do. Vincent clarifies that he is a worker. Since it appears as though he will do nothing, Vincent chooses to go to the huge chamberlain that Wilson discussed to request clean garments, as well as letting him know that he needed to go himself since his worker Wilson would rather not work. This makes Wilson out of nowhere maintain that should go about his business, and he'll do the cleaning as well. However fearful and uncaring as Vincent may be, a worker can't be so ill-bred and self-important. They probably set him there intentionally. Yulion thinks something very similar. They presumably maintain that Vincent should tackle the issue of a rebellious and impolite worker to show how the seventh youthful master of Atinka ought to be. Yulion notices that Wilson used to be a gangster, and that he likewise killed many individuals. Vincent doesn't trust this too. A kill may be valid, as an individual has a specific energy, and he feels nothing at all approaching from Wilson. Besides, he feels that he is likewise a defeatist. Yulion requests him how he makes certain from what he said. Vincent makes certain of this since he has carried on with such a daily existence. Yulion is terrified, as he accepts he brought something more startling than a soul ruler, since we should recall that Yulion doesn't realize that the character of who his creation's body is, Daven himself. Wilson wraps up doing the clothing and tidying up Vincent's room. Wilson sees that Vincent is more agreeable. Vincent asks him for a 1-meter wooden sword weighing around 500 grams, and it should be made of dark-smelling wood. There should be tons like this in the family stockroom. Wilson declines. If so, Vincent would need to go all alone, obviously, and tell the stockroom manager that he is there in person, since Wilson wouldn't follow orders, which is an issue. Wilson didn't have the foggiest idea about this, yet distribution center guardians are outstanding military specialists and exceptionally faithful to the immediate relatives of the family. Wilson asks him for what reason he is behaving like that once more, and when he attempts to contact him, Vincent answers by wrecking him, as he has terrible recollections of being gone after from behind. In spite of having done that, Vincent's body was squirming excruciatingly. Wilson gets up. It seems as though he had a comment, however he at long last consents to follow Vincent's requests, in spite of the fact that he plainly didn't have any desire to from the beginning. Wilson is vexed and doesn't have any desire to lose to Vincent at any point in the future. Wilson gets the sword to Vincent in a terrible way. Vincent remarks that he knows, while a no-ideal individual arm and who has had a hard existence until he met a horrendous end. This makes Wilson's mentality change once more, and he gives up the weapon appropriately, despite the fact that it is humiliating for him. Vincent needs legitimate preparation, so he starts to embrace it. He realizes that the glorious exoskeleton he has is very frail. However, he didn't anticipate being so worn out in the wake of employing the wooden blade a couple of times. Nonetheless, it is a positive sentiment, all that showed that this body was destined to be a military craftsman. Minutes after the fact, a person shows up and slices the life-sized model down the middle. He goes by Raven Atinka. Vincent is certainly not somebody he enjoys. Yulion makes sense that Raven Atinka is an exceptionally insurance relative. He is likewise one of the up-and-comers who is anticipated to win the genuine Blades gathering. The person from before was this person's dad. Yulion cautions him to be cautious, as he is a rising star, the most gifted among the 13-year-olds in the Atinka family. Concerning Raven, that's what he figured, assuming he won in the genuine sword gathering, he would need to battle Vincent, which is the reason he came to track down him. The genuine sword gathering is a rivalry that unites various children of military families connected with the Atinka family to battle with genuine blades. In spite of the fact that there is no age limitation, individuals ordinarily take part in this occasion from the age of 14. The champ of the genuine blade gathering has the potential to battle against an immediate relative of the Atinka family who is a similar age. That immediate relative who will battle against the victor of the opposition will be Vincent, who in principle is viewed as the most fragile of the immediate relatives. Raven thinks Vincent is apprehensive, yet running against the norm. As a matter of fact, he lets him know that even incitements ought to have a specific degree of pride and class. He is irritated that Raven went there to ridicule him. The Daven without an arm was regarded both in the instructional course and in the battlefield. Indeed, even Cajon regarded him. Vincent lets Raven know that it was his dad who showed him such habits. This drives Raven crazy, so he chooses not to pardon him now that Vincent affronted his dad. Yulion cautions that Raven is at a 2-star level and has the properties of a man of steel. He should be cautious, as Raven, in principle, is more grounded than Vincent. This he knows. Assuming that they battle now, he will lose, yet he can't stand that sensation of inadequacy that Raven was raised with as a security relative. Raven is utilizing mana despite the fact that he realizes Vincent can't make it happen. This kid's dad doesn't behave like a grown-up, and his child doesn't have the foggiest idea about the behavior of being a military craftsman. Vincent needs to sort him out. He lets him know that in his time, somebody like Raven would have gotten hammered by the older folks of a family. The two of them point their blades at one another. Raven realizes that Vincent has no mana. In any case, the climate he is in suggests that Vincent could chop him down any time he needed to. Vincent stops things there and cautions Raven that in the gathering of the genuine blades, things won't end with simply wooden swords. That makes Raven burst out of resentment and attempt to go after him. Raven is going to go after him, and Vincent doesn't actually appear to have any expectation of evading this since he realizes Raven can't hurt him. Thus, a person shows up to stop Raven. In the event that he had harmed Vincent, it would have been an issue. Raven lets Vincent know that they will meet at the gathering of the genuine swords. Yulion asks Vincent for what reason he incited Raven before. He answers that all he did was show an insolent youngster a thing or two. Vincent is attempting to realize about that period through Yulion. He was checking a few representations out. Yulion lets him know that now that they are finished with the picture hypothesis, the gifts and attributes follow. The qualities are falsely produced using the broken-down force of the gifts, a man-made gift. Vincent inquires as to whether he can make endowments, as this is impolite to the divine beings. Yulion answers that nobody has kicked the bucket yet from divine discipline. Vincent specifies that Raven likewise has a quality, Man of Steel. Yulion makes sense that the Bantam Lord's endowments incorporate numerous things, however this characteristic spotlights on fortifying the body. The more you grind a particular quality, the more grounded ways it opens up. That is known as a genealogical record. Man of Steel is a mid-level characteristic. Guard and horrendous power are the claims to fame of this quality. Vincent trains. Individuals then notice that he is utilizing just his left hand, so they imagine that Vincent will not have the option to utilize symbolism that way. Furthermore, he begins gasping after a couple of hits. Be that as it may, this person, bad habit pioneer Merlin, tells them not to talk so impulsively about Vincent. Despite the fact that Merlin needs to guard Vincent, taking a gander at him, typical individuals go ahead and call him the disgrace of a Tinka, as he is a person who uses the blade carelessly with next to no mana or quality. Bound to be loathed by individuals. Since everybody was murmuring as they watched Vincent, Yulion proposes to go train in the backwoods. In any case, Vincent is accustomed to being peered downward on in any case, recollecting that nobody anticipated that Daven should without any assistance beat Cajon, yet he did and traded the alcohol for a claim. Then, Merlin gives Vincent a high-level recuperation elixir, which will make preparing simpler. Merlin acquaints himself with him. Vincent is astonished that he isn't chuckling, in spite of the fact that, frankly, he did at first, yet Merlin saw that Vincent's eyes appear to be frantically looking for something. Vincent lets Merlin know that he will recollect his name. Vincent keeps on preparing, both genuinely and hypothetically. Adjusting on his right leg, turning his hip, feeling the mana in his heart, he has started to see it, recalling the method for overcoming Cajon, a way of swords made and stacked with spots and lines to show abilities. Then, he stirs things up around the town faker and figures out how to cut it in two. It worked. His blade strike is finished. Afterward, Wilson is irritated that Vincent's preparation just gives him more work to do. He then serves Vincent breakfast. Vincent promptly understands that Wilson explicitly took a portion of the food, and he didn't actually wipe his mouth. Vincent can let it go this time, yet is clear with him. He doesn't believe that he should go too far. Then, Wilson begins to undermine him by letting him know that he used to be a criminal who killed many individuals. Clearly, this doesn't incite dread in that frame of mind through clairvoyance, lets Wilson know that controlling through dread is simple yet pointless. That is the reason he doesn't push him with power. Wilson is shocked, as he didn't anticipate that Vincent should have the option to utilize mana. Vincent advises Wilson to quit acting pleased before him and stand close by, as soon he won't be embarrassed to be Vincentadinka's property. Vincent gives him two decisions: be controlled by dread or show unwaveringly. Wilson leaves and rejects that any unwaveringly is shaped towards him, in spite of the fact that his face in the wake of leaving expresses the inverse. Merlin meanders around the preparation ground and notification that Vincent got done with preparing before in the day. That is not by any means the only thing he sees. Vincent figured out how to cut a sham. He figures he did it with a genuine edge, yet from what he saw, Vincent just utilized wooden swords. It takes a ton of expertise to pull off a cut like that. Merlin thinks about what sort of hand-to-hand fighting Vincent is learning. Wilson has become extremely pleasant. Vincent specifies something about the garments being made of levadine cotton, which is entirely productive yet ruins the floor. It's not something sufficient to be worn by an aristocrat. Other than that, the food quality is low contrasted with the family's spending plan. This implies there is somebody taking cash. They could think Wilson, however he has no clue about what they are referring to. It's most certainly not him. It should be somebody higher up. Raven is preparing while at the same time recalling how threatening Vincent looked with a simple wooden sword, yet he doesn't appear to be apprehensive by any stretch of the imagination. It drives him crazy, as a matter of fact. His dad goes to see him and lets him know that there isn't a lot of time for the gathering of the genuine blades. That's what he clarifies. to escape from that existence of destitution and the aggravation of the branch families, Raven should overcome Vincent. Raven should turn into the main individual from the branch family to oust the primary family. Raven's dad is by all accounts getting increasingly more bad-tempered as the get-together methodologies. He is turning out to be increasingly fixated. Raven likes to overcome Vincent on the grounds that as such, the two, his dad and his family, can return to how they were previously. We return to Yulion, who has figured out data about individuals who take part in the genuine Blades rivalry. Individual data as well as the procedures they use and their propensities, which is unquestionably startling. In any case, Yulion accepts it as a commendation. Julion's arrangement was to make an eye-getting debut with the genuine swords gathering by acquiring the strength of the soul ruler and furthermore the Marvel Stone, the mana gem given to the boss whenever ingested. The body and mana are in a flash reinforced. From the data he has assembled and the articulation he shows, Vincent knows that Yulion needs to win. It would be a shame as a military craftsman on the off chance that you lose, regardless of whether he has that multitude of devices available to him. Vincent lets him know that in spite of the fact that he may not be the otherworldly lord he was expecting, he will make sure that he gives him a significantly more important triumph. Then, Vincent calls Wilson as he really wants him to work on something for him. He wants Wilson to go see the incomparable Chamberlain Railsa. Simply being before her threatens him. Wilson tells Railsa that Vincent had something to tell the rest of the family. He requested that the head of the family notice the get-together of the genuine swords straightforwardly, as Vincent said he would demonstrate his value as an individual from the fundamental Attica family. Railsa makes reference to that the top of the family has never seen that opposition and has not a great explanation to do as such. Then, at that point, Wilson makes reference to the fact that this is the expense of stealing the financial plan, astounding Railsa. After Wilson leaves, she feels that Vincent might have come for himself. It would have been more successful to undermine him himself. However, he sent Wilson to show authority. Has Vincent figured out Railsa's goals? Railsa likewise goes to the top of the family, Patriarch Khan, to let him know that Vincent has welcomed her to the gathering of the genuine swords. The demeanor of the top of the family is fairly cold, and in spite of the fact that Vincent has said he would show his value, he doesn't completely accept that he is adequately talented to discuss the worth of the genealogy he conveys. Railsa requests that he, if it's not too much trouble, go to the occasion. In any event, that's what lets him know whether Vincent can't demonstrate his value, she will give her head in return. The boss doesn't see the reason why she is doing this. Rail says it is on the grounds that Vincent enjoys taking advantage of a shortcoming of hers. The Central definitely had some awareness of the spending plan misappropriation, however he recognizes that it should be something she did deliberately for the good of Vincent, as she expected to involve that cash for his future. Khan says he has not a great explanation to meddle since, rigorously speaking, Railsa is that lady's worker, not his. However, he perceives that this sort of technique is truly similar to her, communicating every one of her goals towards him with no trace of poise. In any case, might it be said that he is actually Sarvana's child? Railsa wins. The Central will go to the gathering of the genuine swords. The day of the genuine swords gathering has at last shown up. The contenders enter the field. Not entirely settled to overcome Vincent, seeing Khan's presence. Raven is astounded. He is certain that he is there to see his presentation. For all things considered, Raven is the rising star. He would rather not pass up on the valuable chance to overcome Vincent before the Patriarch. The get-together of the genuine swords starts. Raven has his most memorable showdown, in which he figures out how to win effectively, making his dad stand up pleased. No big surprise they call Raven the rising star. All things considered, he is youthful and right now has 2 stars. In addition, the safeguard characteristic he has is great. All things considered, a security relative would win the opposition interestingly. Vincent was watching. In light of the principles of a long time back, everybody there is a virtuoso, yet they have no profundity in hand-to-hand fighting. The strength they have comes primarily from individual qualities. Vincent sees no battling experience in those moves. It's like they are moving mannequins. That is presumably why Raven can utilize characteristics and assault so carelessly. Raven figures Vincent will take off, however Vincent won't run anywhere. The battles proceeded. Raven continued to move until he at long last beat every one of the contenders. That is the point at which he shows himself before Khan, and similarly as the regulations said direct, he needs to battle Vincent as the last battle of the gathering of the genuine blades. Vincent doesn't reconsider and acknowledges the demand. Both go to the battling field. The ref, Zarin, having a place with the White Blade unit, will be responsible for beginning. Experience hinders as he has a condition. He will utilize the wooden sword and his pass close by to battle. Additionally, he will allow Raven to have 3 goes after first. Until these 3 assaults are finished, Vincent won't move a solitary step. Where Van asks him what in blazes he is doing, he assumes he is ridiculing him. Indeed, even now, the crowd thought this was ludicrous and that Vincent doesn't know anything about hand-to-hand fighting. Raven's dad steps in to say that Vincent is possibly doing this to rationalize when he loses. Yet Khan will permit Vincent's circumstances. In any case, he makes it clear to him that he better demonstrate words with activities. The quarrel is over to begin. The 2 of them get ready, and it at last starts. Raven burns through no time and goes after right away. The principal assault is probably going to be a shortcut. The majority of the assaults are bluffs. The genuine assault would be the subsequent wound. Vincent believes Raven's moves are clear to such an extent that he can see them even without Julion's data. Huge blades, first of all, are not made for cutting, so he diverts the assault with one hand. Raven is astounded in light of the fact that for something to that effect to occur, Vincent must be a lot more grounded than him. Finch and allow him to have 2 goes after first. He has just a single assault left, yet Raven flies off the handle at the pomposity Vincent is appearing and attempts to go after everything, except it doesn't work. Vincent figures out how to get him by one arm and wreck him. The 3 assaults are finished. It's currently or never. Vincent plans to satisfy the commitment he made to Yulion and father. Presently it's his chance to assault. Everybody was astounded that Raven had bowed before Vincent. His dad, irate, asks him for what valid reason he's having such a difficult situation against somebody who can't utilize mana. Raven doesn't have the foggiest idea what's happening, considerably less Yulion, who hasn't seen it plainly. Vincent answers that it's an essential unarmed battle. Remaining there stunned in light of the fact that you don't have a sharp edge isn't the method of a genuine military craftsman. Significance: there are numerous ways of smothering a rival without weapons. Raven specifies that he sees now Vincent has gotten a characteristic given by a little minor god. This is no sweat for Vincent. Assuming it makes things simpler for him, let Raven continue to think like that. Raven plans to go after once more, yet Vincent figures out how to avoid him and gets ready to countergo after by hitting him in the neck. Nonetheless, this doesn't hurt Raven, as a training sword will always be unable to get through the guards of a man of steel with a wrecked wonderful exoskeleton and an undeveloped body. Vincent will not have the option to utilize extraordinary strength yet in the event that Raven acquires certainty, he will go after in the future with a similar strategy. Thus, Vincent, utilizing the force of him punching downwards, hits him in the stomach, then, at that point, tells the ref, Zarin, to give his all to forestall a misfortune. Vincent just has a single opportunity. In the event that he utilizes that capacity only a single time, his body will implode. He should complete the battle while Raven is still in the air. Raven attempts to protect himself, however Vincent can see through the assaults, the strange way of blades that will associate the 2 focuses. He advises Yulion to look cautiously. This is the sword he dominated. Vincent figures out how to hit him, drawing the consideration of even the patriarch. Persuaded, slices into space and turns the progression of mana utilizing the sword to slice through everything, including the foe's capacity. That is the outright blade. Raven grumbles of agony in his arm as retaliation's pass tore it over. Vincent tells Zarin to stop the battle immediately, as there is a champ. Raven's dad enters the front line to help watch out for his child's injuries. They should call the cleric. Vincent had cautioned the official. He advised him to stop before a misfortune happened. Regardless of keeping his self-restraint, Vincent's body is anxious, yet this is no chance to fall. Vincent goes to Khan and lets him know that he kept the commitment. From that point forward, Khan provides Vincent with the victor of the genuine swords gathering. From that point onward, they get ready for the granting. Vincent will be given a marvel stone as a prize. Raven's dad blasts into complete outrage, as he accepts that Vincent utilized filthy deceives and acquired the force of a messenger. The cleric lets Khan know that there is an issue. Raven's arm won't be joined to his body once more. Raven's dad will not acknowledge that his child would live with just a single arm, in any event, faulting the ministers for not having the option to recuperate him. Be that as it may, it's a kind of physical issue they've never seen. It isn't just something they have not seen previously, however it appears to be that Raven was cut by something that the cleric's heavenly powers can't deal with. They should hustle, if not. Even a devout minister cannot fix what is going on. Raven's dad improves the hypothesis that Vincent utilized grimy stunts. Vincent inquires as to whether he can answer the allegations, who gives him authorization. Vincent specifies that the gathering of the genuine blades was held within the sight of the Patriarch Khan. Hence, all procedures are viewed as supported and fully backed by the Patriarch. The Patriarch has approved Vincent as the last champ. In this manner, the expressions of Raven's dad, Charles, straightforwardly discredit the power of the Patriarch. Vincent orders Zarin, having a place with the White Blade unit, to capture Charles since he ridiculed the Patriarch's clout openly. Zarin captures Charles. Then, at that point, the Patriarch intercedes to let Charles know that he is obliged to Vincent. In the event that he had not been there, Charles would have needed to confront the family sanctions. Khan will allow what is going on to pass, however asks him not to open his mouth once more. Yulion appears to look cheerful, as it is an important encounter to be commended by the Patriarch. However, back to Raven. Going on like this, the right arm will be lost for eternity. Then Yulion murmurs some mediation, clarifying that it would be an opportunity in support of himself. Vincent inquires as to whether he can't fix the arm with the Wonderstone. All things considered, it was Vincent who removed Raven's right arm. It would be great if he would stop it. Patriarch Khan concurs. Raven approaches Charles and liberates him utilizing a blade. Notwithstanding, in assisting him, it will be tit for tat and a tooth, for Raven's right arm will require another person's right arm. Vincent contemplates Charles being a failure, as he will not express anything in spite of the circumstance. Is a right arm that vital to him? I get it. Charles consents to forfeit his right arm. Clearly, despite the fact that he was playing the fool, he adored his child. As Charles was going to remove his arm, Zarin intercedes on Vincent's requests to prevent Charles from eliminating his arm. Vincent lets Charles know that he trusts that in the future he will involve all that boldness for a superior reason. So, the circumstances are settled. Khan gives the Wonderstone to Vincent, who quickly gives it to the minister. The minister, named Daven, starts to involve it in the expectation of recuperating Raven's arm supernaturally. Seconds after the fact, Raven gets his arm back. The mending of Raven was Yulion's thought. In spite of the fact that it's a pity since that stone might have been utilized to extinguish the thirst of the eminent exoskeleton. While this was going on, Wilson was paying attention to everything behind the entryway, thinking how extraordinary Vincent was. Then he recollects everything that Vincent had said to him before lastly chooses to be faithful to Vincent. Wilson currently chooses to give total unwaveringly to Vincent. Then, the cleric goes to see Vincent. He is Daven, a minister who venerates Gaia. He is there to offer thanks to him for the matter previously, and shockingly, he gives him back the Wonderstone. Daven gives it to him since making the people who experience first ascent up and chuckle until they are blissful is the motivation behind why he turned into a minister. Besides, perceiving how Vincent acted, he looked at the worth of the Marvel Stone to a human existence, and Vincent readily surrendered the supernatural occurrence stone. It made Daven reflect. Vincent lets him know that he sat idle. Daven just acknowledged it himself. Notwithstanding, tolerating the stone would be the appropriate method for regarding Daven. Notwithstanding the supernatural occurrence stone, Daven gives Vincent a card in the event that he at any point needs the sanctuary's assistance. Daven has turned into an inferior minister, albeit that isn't yet open information. Yulion is shocked, similar to an inferior minister implies having limitless treatment, free utilization of the staff, in addition to the card from before is equivalent to telling them, "Deal with me like a below-average cleric." In spite of the fact that Vincent doesn't actually have the foggiest idea what inferior means. Daven bids farewell, and Yulion is cheerful in light of the fact that now they have something far superior to Wilson. Yulion is somewhat frail to commend. Discussing a claim, Khan typically eats alone, however in the past he welcomed one of the Atinka relatives to eat with him. After the get-together of the genuine blades, that individual was the subsequent girl, D.A., and she had a mind-boggling triumph in the gathering of the genuine swords. The fact of the matter is that there is a half-opportunity that exactly the same thing will occur with Vincent that evening, in spite of the fact that his body feels solid. Then, at that point, he begins to set himself up, despite the fact that it was not entirely certain that he would be welcome to the supper. Minutes after the fact, Wilson enters to tell Vincent that Manager Khan has welcomed him to supper, exactly what Vincent anticipated. En route to supper, Vincent meets his stepmother, who praises him on winning the opposition. Vincent's genuine mother died in the wake of bringing forth him. The stepmother's name is Versa Good Country. Before her retirement, she was such a wild military craftsman that she was known as a Goliath. These days, she is accountable for everything connected with the Adinka house. The two of them forge ahead to where Khan is hanging tight for them. The tension Khan is applying is unbelievable to the point that Vincent finds it hard to relax. The climate hasn't felt like this previously. It implies that the way that he was welcomed should be a test for him. Vincent lets him know that he doesn't think there is any need to come down on him in a confidential gathering deliberately. This is on the grounds that Khan should anticipate him as a dad, not as the top of the family. Khan recognizes that Vincent was on the whole correct to take note. He has called him for two reasons: to salute him on the present triumph and to perceive how substantial Charles's interests were. Then, Versa looks rather threateningly at Vincent, this to assess him. Khan inquires as to whether quite possibly Vincent is a witness, yet she answers that he doesn't appear to be. Vincent feels a horrendous sensation. It should be Versa's claim to fame. She has eyes that can see through reality. Khan requests Versa what kind of military workmanship Vincent utilizes, since he has not yet had the option to connect a picture to the heart. How is it that he could remove Raven's arm, who is a 2-star military craftsman? Versa answers that Vincent's capacity is like the blade of the legend ruler, Kajin Samion. He used his sword in bizarre ways and was said to eat up any malicious capacity. It was additionally said that his blade had the option to quell the evil presence of Daven. Once more, a created story leaves Daven as the failure when he was not. Versa approaches Vincent and requests that he talk. How could he discover that swordplay that looks like Kajin's? Vincent thought it was Khan who called him, yet that discussion is being taken care of by Versa. He is being examined regarding the starting points of his combative techniques. Yulion frantically asks Vincent not to respond to the inquiry, as she can tell the truth from lies with her eyes. In the event that Vincent says messy reasons, she will get dubious. However, at that point, how would it be advisable for him to respond? Tell her that he isn't her child, however somebody from a long time back? Yulion says he will deal with it, albeit truly he fears being found acting pointless. Yet Vincent quiets him down, and lets him know that it is only one stage to defeat his apprehensions. Vincent will venture out for him. He lets Versa know that he has gotten a disclosure. This cautions Versa, as he got a disclosure with no gift. As a rule, you can't get disclosures without gifts except if they are terrible. Yulion had not let Vincent know this, seeing that he was acting dubiously. Versa takes steps to take him to the preliminary of the heavenly court. Yulion requests that Vincent say equivalent to him. That's what he says on the off chance that she thinks that he is dubious, she can check with the sanctuary. In any case, on the off chance that he is malevolent, couldn't a cleric who has a position 3 supernatural occurrence stone remember him? That marvel stone had been given to Daven by Versa. It is the one Vincent got as a gift before. Utilizing his eyes, he understands that Vincent isn't lying. He then inquires as to whether he truly educated swordplay through a disclosure. Vincent answers that he gained some significant knowledge through disclosures. In any case, swordplay he didn't realize there. He makes reference to that he has forever had the option to pursue the secretive developments of the sword. Notwithstanding, he had pondered for a couple of days whether he ought to discover that, however he needed to change, despite the fact that it could cause doubt from various individuals. He figured doing anything would be fearful not. Yulion's reality and Vincent's reality, their two bits of insight, can confront one another. In Versa's eyes, together, they say that really at that time they might at any point beat the Samion family and satisfy the long mission of the Adinka family. He needed to show how he has become more grounded to the numerous relatives, Khan included, in light of the fact that he figured he would have the option to make the right judgment. Khan rubs his jawline. Burson rapidly understands that he does that when he is happy with something. Khan's choice is for Vincent to keep preparing combative techniques. Versa lets Khan know that she is certain he realizes that Cajun's ability is like that of the devil ruler Daven. In the event that Vincent utilizes the legend ruler's blade, the Samion family will raise a ruckus and say that they have taken it. However, they wouldn't need to say anything assuming that the incomparable evil spirit ruler's sword utilized all things being equal. Since Khan has given his endorsement, he will be liable for everything. So Vincent should give his all to work on himself and not create problems. Vincent realizes that this is definitely not a basic advance notice. She is affirming the patriarch's choice and furthermore giving him her endorsement. Khan lets Vincent know that she has shown extraordinary outcomes in the get-together of the genuine swords. For that reason Khan will give her something she wants. Vincent needs to be more grounded. Yulion murmurs to Vincent to request that Khan let him go to the family library. Just 3-star military specialists are permitted there. Khan inquires as to whether he has figured out how to connect the thoughts in his heart. Vincent answers that he hasn't had the option to, so he might want to make a move to act like a ruined youngster. Khan concurs, permitting Vincent to enter the lower library, then advises Vincent to give Vincent the blood red lotus, the prize for satisfying his guarantee to him. The ruby lotus is the sword that Khan utilized when he was youthful and started to become famous on the planet. It is essentially the historical backdrop of the Adinka family. Yulion is glad for what they have accomplished, yet Vincent makes it clear to him that they will accomplish significantly more later on. From the outset, Yulion was disheartened that Vincent was not the sole lord, but rather he didn't think he had the option to accomplish as much by calling the sole ruler as he had expected. He can entrust Vincent with his body later. Vincent is going to leave with Wilson, yet Versa shouts to him. She lets him know that she is exceptionally pleased with him for what he has accomplished. She specifies that since he has won against Raven, he ought to enter the Ruby Post. As indicated by custom, the Blood Red Post is one of only a handful of exceptional preparation establishments that the Adinka family has. Just the individuals who complete the preparation at the fort will be perceived as full military craftsmen. The necessities for passage are the gathering of the genuine swords and the enslavement of an underneath positioning evil presence, the Blood Red Devil. Versa answers to Vincent that she doesn't know yet. She understands that Vincent's unusual developments with the sword make his body endure. Then she lets him know that it is basically impossible to polish off the Ruby Devil in one assault, so Vincent will pass on assuming he battles him in his present status. Versa is prompting him. She appears to have started to truly appreciate Vincent, and this is possible since she knows something of his story with the eye that finds lies. In the new arrangement of the ruler, she might have outlined Vincent for anything she needs, however. She didn't. Vincent interferes with her and says thanks to her for the exhortation. She was attempting to make sense of the ruby evil spirit's characteristic, yet Vincent left without inquiring. Most likely he is a bold military craftsman. Versa is blissful as today Sarvana's child has made a major stride as a military craftsman. Wilson was working and meets this young lady, Sari, who promptly whines to him since she thinks Wilson is meddling with Minchin. Be that as it may, acknowledging how steadfast he is currently, she contemplates whether he is a Wilson as in the past. Wilson tells Sari that Vincent is in the library where just the family's military specialists can enter. In there, Vincent finds no records from a long time back. Just that time span is missing, as though it has been taken out. There are just kids' anecdotes about the Devil Lord and the Legend Ruler. As of now, Yulion suspects that somebody eradicated the records from a long time back, the sword expertise too. Somebody eradicated it or transformed it. Vincent will deal with that later. Until further notice, he should expand the quantity of his blade expertise to overcome the red evil presence. He wants a preparation strategy before the symbolism hypothesis, as right now he can't arrive at symbolism. Yulion asks Vincent for his actual personality. That's what he knows. If he discovers that he is the incomparable evil presence Daven, Yulion will be stunned. Nonetheless, it wouldn't be deferential as he is the past proprietor of the body he has now, and the two of them share a similar destiny. Vincent reveals to Yulion his personality. In any case, after saying his name, Yulion begins acting abnormally. There is a horrendous sound in his ear. For that reason Yulion would rather not know any longer. Vincent finds a book called First Love with a Water Factory. Why would that be a book like that in the manner preparing? The chances of a sentiment book sneaking in there are low. So Vincent realizes immediately that somebody kept mysteries and that they are in that book. However, from the beginning, it is an ordinary sentiment book. In the wake of perusing a little, Vincent tells Yulion that the person in that book has no pictures, yet assuming that it has the force of affection as a characteristic, it's anything but an ordinary book. Attributes ought not be utilized to incite the progression of mana. However, the indication of characteristics ought to be finished by making mana flow to accomplish that. The entire hypothesis of symbolism must be disposed of. With symbolism, the opportunity of mana makes everything conceivable. The book recounts an individual who stacked up mana without symbolism and lived with the assistance of that book. They will actually want to show characteristics also. Yulion cautions that learning a characteristic is perilous, even with the assistance of symbolism, and equality is in abundance for a military craftsman, so they won't effectively show the stream too. Be that as it may, they most certainly track down a sign to become more grounded. Vincent needs to go for tests, however on out, he meets Sari, who definitely knows all that has occurred and is pleased with him. Vincent doesn't have the foggiest idea what her identity is. Yulion lets him know that Sari is a house cleaner who had left for some time in view of a circumstance in her loved ones. Notwithstanding everything, there was somebody who gave blind love to somebody like Minchin. Then, Raven shows up, who has a comment to Vincent. The two of them go to a room, however the air is very tense. Minutes after the fact, Raven makes reference to that he is there to compensate for the obligation to Vincent for the gathering of the genuine blades. Everything demonstrated that Raven would go after Vincent, and Vincent didn't anticipate it. Similar strategies won't neutralize Raven. Vincent requests that Sari escape from that point, yet she declines. Shockingly, Raven wasn't there to battle. He recognizes that Vincent excused him and gave him the supernatural occurrence stone so he could re-establish his arm. He has recaptured everything, his arm and his dad, however he has not had the option to give anything back. Raven concedes he was a defeatist, yet he needs to quit being a weakling. Everything he can manage now is to swear steadfastness to Vincent. All things considered, it was anything but a lost cause, albeit Yulion frantically doesn't have any desire to accept what Raven says. In any case, he put his sword toward Vincent. It is a demonstration of giving life to somebody as a military craftsman, and he is not kidding. Yulion won't confide in Raven, however he has a thought. Vincent acknowledges Raven's vow and will likewise remain by him until the second he deceives him. Raven understands that Vincent's blade is the Red Lotus, so he'll ensure he will love swearing faithfulness. Cheerful Sari takes a gander at how Vincent has changed. The times when he was known as a failure are a distant memory. Yulion needs to have a go at something to acquire the qualities of Raven's dwarven lord's favoring. From that point, we see Versa, who converses with Khan and lets him know that Vincent plans to join the Dark Red Stronghold 1 year from now. Concerning overcoming the ruby evil spirit, Versa comes clean with him. She planned to illuminate him about the particulars regarding the evil presence, yet Vincent wouldn't tune in. Ruby evil presences can go after with mana of the 3rd star or higher, as they have no actual structure. The explanation triumph is a transitional experience is to see the manner in which somebody faces a devil and see verification that they have mana higher than the 3rd star. For Versa, it's a notification that Raven started to visit Vincent more, with the eventual result of living there. Vincent was preparing, and Raven was directing him. This he does to attempt to acquire the Bantam Lord's approval. Yet they will do as such with the techniques for the book before, as Vincent has no symbolism. Raven's devotion is tried, and for that Vincent should ponder next to him. Raven feels to some degree regrettable, yet doesn't think of it as something terrible. It is whenever a loss first feels better. In any case, he didn't expect that there would be somebody who might involve such insane strategies in the immediate genealogy. Yulion attempts to direct Vincent in light of the fact that despite the fact that Vincent is pondering, he is doing anything he desires, risking his life apiece. Raven lets Vincent know that he is excessively unconstrained, he ought to relax. Be that as it may, this is the means by which Vincent has lived. Even before, when he was Daven, he was unable to win anything without putting his own life in danger. The reflection escalates. Yulion feels trepidation that Vincent will bite the dust at that rate, yet Vincent will compel somewhat more. The stream will be finished assuming he figures out how to interface it, yet Raven attempts to stop him as doing that is too soon. Vincent figures out how to interface the two streams, yet a major blast happens. Vincent is fine, yet he attempted to do excessively. What he attempted took Raven a portion of a year back. To these two, Khan specifies that it's a portion of a year until the following red fortification entry. This occasion might be a simple one for Vincent, as he's as of now crushed a 2-star military craftsman. That is the reason Khan will allow Vincent a month to overcome the dark red evil spirit, where Elsa is responsible for taking this message to Vincent. She is stressed in light of the fact that a month is too brief a period. At the point when she goes into the room, she tracks down a total wreck. Both Vincent and Raven are harmed from the blast. She requests a decent clarification for everything. Vincent tells her that he was simply reflecting a bit. Anything the contemplation is, Elsa lets him know that he should rush. Then, she gives him Khan's message. He should complete the soul-changing experience in a month. Yulion is amazed in light of the fact that supposedly, no time limit had at any point been set. However, that implies Khan as of now has exclusive standards of Vincent. Until a month has passed, Elsa will go with Vincent by and by as a defender, so she anticipates that he should give his all. Raven is stressed, as it will take Vincent somewhere around 2 months to get the Bantam ruler's approval. Vincent realizes he should hustle. Then again, Sari doesn't believe he should endeavor to such an extent. Then, he sees that Sari has a lot of mana, however requests that she leave as he has something to examine with Raven. Raven lets him know that 1 month isn't sufficient, they should track down an alternate way. Then, at that point, Vincent reflects once more and shows Raven the mana circuit. Incredibly, he has finished the stream. With that, he can undoubtedly arrive at the appearance. There will be compelling reasons to hang tight for a month. It will surpass Khan's assumptions. After 14 days, Vincent trains in the woods. He will begin with the appearance of the qualities, then cautions that there could be a blast like last time. So he reprimands Raven to back, however Raven demands remaining close by. Vincent starts, and Yulion has an odd inclination. Then, at that point, the Bantam Lord appears before them, however just Yulion is by all accounts ready to see him. The Bantam ruler plans to assault, however not to hurt. This is the gift of the Bantam Lord, the main characteristic of protection reinforcing the body. It is the step before the Man of Steel. Raven is shocked that Vincent made it, and it hasn't even been a month. With that, Vincent will actually want to defeat the weight of the outright blade. He has prevailed with regards to establishing the groundwork for the oppression of the blood-red devil. Vincent says thanks to Raven, yet there is another blessing he needs to request from him. After 2 days, Vincent plans to go to the lair of the Crimson Demon. Vincent makes an unexpected solicitation to Raelsa. As it hasn't been a month at this point, she is worried about this. She makes reference to that she has safeguarded the people who take part in that transitional experience multiple times, both Khan and Vincent's siblings and the others throughout the entire existence of the Adinka faction, and there has not been one who has bombed the test. So without a doubt, Sarvana's child can't be quick to bomb the test. Sarvana is Vincent's mom, in the event that it's as yet not satisfactory. Vincent advises Raelsa that she doesn't have anything to stress over. He has this.